What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Talking Elite Fitness. I'm Sean Woodland, joined as always by Lauren Khalil. Lauren, what's up?
Not much, guys. I'm wondering if it was hotter here today than it was there. What was the temperature?
I was in the 90s, 80, high 80s. Low
Oh, I thought it stayed like 70 and
Oh, no,
sunny all year
80s,
round.
No, that's
7 here.
that's that's more down near me for Sean's warmer. Today
Oh,
was 70 here.
okay. It was like 85 degrees here
All right,
today.
so it's about
I
time.
know. Yep,
Yes.
yep.
And
Tides are turning.
featuring Tommy Marquez. Tommy, how you doing?
I'm good. I am feeling the effects of multiple training days in a row after,
Mm.
some
Yeah,
extended dad hours.
yeah. Dad life will change that training schedule right up on
Oh, oh my gosh. Yeah, it's jumping right in with some thrusters,
you. Ooh,
Oh, why would you
squatting.
pick thrusters to start?
Do you think I picked that?
no.
I'm
Tommy had been deadlifting and wall balling if that or in
And
rowing.
rowing
That would
and
have been the
yeah.
worst.
I'm
Maybe a little running.
I'm built like an orangutan on stilts. Why would I do
Yeah,
why would I do
I don't know.
thrusters?
I had to know.
But
a lot of
yeah,
raw.
yeah, a lot of ROM. A lot of ROM.
Well, we got a lot to talk about today. Got a jam-packed show. We're going to recap the weekend that was, the Super Semis weekend that was, with 4 in-person qualifying competitions. We'll take a quick look ahead to next week because we have one more in-person qualifying event, and then we have the last chance qualifier. We got a little more details about that. World Fitness Project has some more news as well that we want to talk about. And we're going to be hearing from one Annika Greer as she has finally, I mean, I don't want to jinx it, but has qualified for the games, has her
She's
ticket, is
registered too,
scheduled
Sean. If you go to the
to
games
compete.
website, she's on the leaderboard.
Yeah,
So
that's a good point.
Perfect. All right. So we'll be hearing from
good
her
sign.
later on in the show. But before we get into it here, we want to thank our sponsor for today, and that is Thirdzy and their rest and recovery collagen. Thirdzy is a fantastic product if you're looking to not only up your sleep game, but also improve your recovery while you sleep. It does not have any melatonin in it because they don't want it to be habit forming. It has really good stuff in it, like GABA, L-theanine, magnesium. That stuff helps you calm your central nervous system so you can get to sleep faster and stay asleep longer. And look, there's a recent study and you can find it on the National Library of Medicine website. That's pmc.ncbi.nlm.nih.gov.
It's a
That's how you know
mouthful.
it's good.
Yeah, ingestion of a whey plus collagen protein blend increases myofibrillar and muscular connective protein synthesis rates. Now, you know that's a good study because it's full of a bunch of words. I don't know what they mean. All right, but science backed. Thirdzy works, man. I love it. It is part of my nightly routine. Helps me, someone who sucks at sleeping, helps me sleep a lot better, stay asleep a lot longer, and get the most out of the sleep. You know, Tommy, you're in the middle of dad life right now. You know, you're
Oof.
sleep is compressed. You got to get the most you can out of it. So if you want to get on board the Thirdzy train, and we highly recommend that you do, go to thirdzy.com. That's thirdzy.com. Use our code. You got to use the code again. They've changed it again. So use the code TEF. That's the code. You'll save 20% and you will sleep and you will recover better. So thirdzy.com and the code is TEF.
And do a little Sean Woodland hack and add a little bit of coconut water to that Thirdzy. Ooh,
Crazy.
Yeah,
You do
get you
you.
real loose in the hips.
Yeah.
yeah, little carbs with the Thirdzy before bed.
That has got to be a Marson Sawyer's.
It absolutely is.
Oh man, that's something that he would just throw out there. Yeah, I'm just mobilized. Yeah, it gets you a little loose in the hips.
Mm.
With a smile, you just did a great impression.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
that was good.
Marson. I'm having a second cup of coffee. Gets you loose in the hips. It's like, what does that
Yes.
mean? But
God,
somehow in his brain, that
one of
connection.
my biggest regrets in life is that I had a note in my iPhone, in my notes app that was tied to our old CrossFit email that had my running list of Marstonisms that I was going to turn into a coffee table book, and I can't access it now.
Oh my God.
When we
Oh, that's
lost
bad.
access to our CrossFit emails, I can't get that note back, and it was there were some winners in there.
That'd make a great coffee table book right there. Dispatch. I always wanted to call it Dispatches from Planet Mars and just have him saying random stuff. All right, well, let's get to what we want to talk about because this last weekend was extremely busy. We had not one, not two, not 3, but 4 in-person qualifying events around the world. We had the Syndicate Crown in North America. We had the Rebel Renegade Games in South Africa. We had the Far East Throwdown in South Korea, and then we had the Torium Pro in Australia. So let's just quickly go through these Far East Throwdown. So Sung Young Choi had already qualified.
Mm-hmm.
She won, and Mariana Meza, who finished second, gets the qualifying spot. So for those of you who have been through the whole sanctional season, this will sound very familiar to you as we go through this.
Yep. Mariana hailing from the Far East country of Mexico.
Yes. I guess you went the long way around.
If you tilt
Big time change for her.
Yeah.
if you tilt the Earth on its axis horizontally, then yeah.
Yeah. But so that was one that obviously wasn't regionally locked.
No. Yeah.
So congratulations to her. And then Morteza Setagat is the qualifier for the man. He'll go to the CrossFit Games on the men's side. Then
he's come close quite a few times. Finally got it.
Yeah, didn't he compete in the old Meridian Regional a couple of times?
I want to say possibly, but yeah, he's been. I mean, 20. He was, Asia Invitational, Last Chance qualifier. If you go basically at the semifinal or regional level, he has finished inside the top 5 multiple times in a row, and has just missed out. And it's tough. And I believe he might have qualified one year and not been able to get a visa, if I remember correctly. So, because I believe his home country is Iran. So that's, yeah.
Well, hopefully things work out for him this time around. All right. So 1 qualifier each from the Far East Throwdown. And then the Rebel Renegade Games out of South Africa, they had 1 qualifier each. Christina Lividatakis is going to be the qualifier on the women's side. We talked about this last week. Thought maybe Sarah Sigmund's daughter was going to be making a return to the CrossFit Games. That is not to be. So, yeah, I thought maybe that would happen, but it did not. So congratulations to Christine Lividatakis. And then on the men's side, it's Toby Buckland who's going to be making I'm guessing this is probably his debut at the CrossFit Games. That is not a name that I have heard before. Now, granted, you got to go back to 2019 when they qualified 400 people. I don't know if he was in that group, but.
No, he wasn't.
Okay, so congratulations to Toby Buckland on making his first appearance. And then we go to the Syndicate Crown. Brooke Wells, congratulations to her coming back from that mishap in the online qualifier where she got docked all those, and rightfully so, I should say, docked all those reps on the burpees. And then Lexi Neely also is going to qualify. Then on the men's side, you got Ty Jenkins and good old Captain Jack Rosema are going to be going to the CrossFit.
Captain Jack, I love that.
I like that too.
Yeah, he's got a hell of a resume too. That guy I think he went to Ohio State, wrestler, win a national title, JAG in the Army. That guy's got some bona fides. And then on the Torian Pro side, and this is what I really want to spend the most time with. So let's start on the men's side. So Ricky Garrard and Jay Crouch finished 1st and 2nd respectively. Now, Guy Mayeros finished in 3rd. Now, there are a lot of people wondering why Guy did not get that ticket. And the reason is because Guy did not finish high enough in the Worldwide Open.
Yeah, he may not have even signed up.
Yeah, I don't, he just, right. So he can still do these competitions, but he is not eligible to go to the game. So that's why the qualifying spot skips him and then drops down to Peter Ellis in 4th and Isaac Newman in 5th. And we, again, talked about this last week, that if you could wind up in the top 4, top 5 on the men's side, you had a really good shot. And here we have Peter Ellis and Isaac Newman, who are the guys that are going to earn that ticket. And then on the women's side, Tia Toomey.
Drum roll, ladies and gentlemen.
And Maddie Sturt, right? They're the top 2. Both of them had already qualified
by a wide margin.
Yeah. So Emily DeRoy in 3rd got the 2nd ticket because Tia had not qualified, right? So here, you look at what Tia Toomey did in that competition. And she won 5 events out of 6. Why would she not go to Albany and compete at the CrossFit Games? Give me a reason why she shouldn't do this.
I don't think it's a matter of she shouldn't do it, but I think it's a matter of, um, like a lot of things in the sense of, does she wanna add another competition to compete in just a month after, the championship for High Rocks? Is she going to compete in Rogue? And I know that that's, well off from the CrossFit Games, but I guess there's no real reason why she shouldn't unless she ends High Rocks and isn't healthy and needs downtime or family time or I don't know.
There's
Now I don't have a good answer.
it's not. I don't
Yeah,
think there is one. Tommy, you want to take a swing?
yeah, it's
You go up to
I'm
bat now.
I'm coming up to bat like Larry Walker when he faced Randy Johnson in the All-Star game, helmet
Oh,
backwards and
yeah.
batting the opposite
Yeah.
side of the plate. Yeah. Um, yeah, really, I guess it really comes down to energy and resource management. And that's just like, does she want to take the time to do the full games right up? Like with focusing on High Rocks, there's more High Rocks races on the calendar after Worlds. If that's something that she has in like her plan for the calendar, or even if she plans on doing Rogue, how does the games fit into that? Now, knowing how Tia is as a competitor and her like internal drive to want to compete, I don't see that. I don't. I'd be very surprised if she didn't, right? Especially because the way the game's prize purse this year is heavily loaded towards the top position, right? And so it's 288,000, give or take a few, you know, Burger King bucks, and then it drops down to what, 50, like in the 50s, 57, 58,000 for second place. And for Tia, looking around, you look at the rest of the games field right now, and you're like, is there any of these women that I think can legitimately beat me?
No,
And I
And
think that's the question.
yeah,
no,
well,
it's not.
yeah, I don't think it's a question.
Yeah,
I think it's a pretty resounding no. And that's not to like take away from the accomplishments of my son just walked by with the cutest face on.
he's
He just
walking
woke
now.
up. No, he's being walked for crawling, but he's crawling, but not
He's
walking.
mobile.
Yeah. Yeah, he's mobile. So I got distracted there for a second by cuteness, but um it's just like that, like the accomplishments of the other women are fantastic, but none of them have been able to even hold a candle to Tia in the last 7 years. So it's
But how
it's
does a condensed
It doesn't. It doesn't matter. Let me just jump in. A couple years ago, Tia
Yeah,
Toomey was what 5 6 months postpartum and nearly won the Rogue Invitational.
I know,
And the woman who beat her isn't even in the field this year. Okay, so why do we think that coming off a High Rocks race and training for High Rocks is going to somehow affect her ability to go and mop the floor with the competition in Albany?
we don't, but I'm trying to create good dialogue,
I don't
Sean.
think that I appreciate your effort, but if I'm her, I'm booking my ticket right now to Albany, and I'm like, I'm gonna go win this thing, and I'm gonna go bank that check.
yeah,
Okay,
I'm
but
gonna go
what happens if she shows up at the games and doesn't win? What does that change
Who in the
her legacy or resume?
No, it doesn't because you can then it doesn't to me at all. It doesn't because she's not. You could make the excuse, and I know she's not going to make excuses, but you could say, oh, then maybe she wasn't training for it. But there's no one in that field that has even come close to her in anything. And the only woman who has, like I said, is Laura Horvath, and she's not competing. And those
I
women
think,
couldn't even beat her at Rogue when she was 5 months postpartum.
and she pretty much has like a it sounds weird, like she pretty much has a baked in excuse too, right? Like it hasn't been her focus. She still like mopped the floor with the Torian Pro. She looked good on all the movements.
Mhm.
Like she, her history, like her history of skill and strength with the barbell, even though she hasn't been training, hasn't just gone away. She's still exercising. I just, it, you're asking her to, and this, depending on what she would make for the appearance at the games, too, you're asking her to turn down, you know, a, third to, you know, at least a third of $1 million to just to go compete for 3 days.
Right. I think to me, this is like, I hope that those travel plans are made, because that's a, there's obviously nothing's guaranteed in this life, and that's why they play the game. But there are very few things in sports that are as close to a sure thing as Tia Toomey showing up at a competition and winning.
And yeah, that's true. And it's honestly the most difficult part about the entire process of going to the games to win and cash another check would be getting a decent flight to Albany.
That's going to be the toughest thing for her, is like figuring out from Australia or wherever she's coming. Like, well, by that point, it'll be Tennessee.
Yeah.
It's not that hard. But yeah, I mean, I cannot think of a reason as to why she should not do this. Because go to something, just think back to the semifinals and the competitions we have seen so far. Have we seen anybody at any of those competitions that has dominated like she did?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, and it really, like, the only reason why she wouldn't do it if she's, like, contractually obligated elsewhere, but it's hard to even say if that's the case or not,
Yeah.
but
Well, okay, let's just say in the event that she doesn't go, Georgia Pryor would be the next woman up to get that ticket,
Just in case.
just in case Tia decides not to go. But I don't
a
see how she doesn't do this.
this is a scenario that when we talked about the preview last year, I was like, honestly, there's athletes like Gemma Hawk and Georgia Pryor that have just constantly find themselves on the bubble out of this region, and now they're here, and you hope that there's proper communication between everybody to let them know, like, hey, I'm not going to go, I'm going to go. But yeah, I don't know. It's like putting Michael Jordan, in front of a basketball hoop against a sixth grader and say, if you beat him, you win $1 million.
Yeah, exactly.
You
Michael
know,
Jordan would back that kid in so hard and just turn around and dunk it right in his face, like no mercy. And
and
that's kind of what I think is going to happen.
and Charles Barkley is standing there trash talking him as if he's got the other side of the bet. And if you know anything about Jordan, he
Yeah.
loves to gamble. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's
All right.
I don't know. It's the more and more I think about it, the more and more I talk myself into this being inevitable, because it seemed like there was questions around it. And there was
Yeah.
even like a ton of ambiguity around the messaging after the Torian Pro and, this being the farewell. Like, I guess maybe you could argue that, like, hey, if you want the last time she steps on the competition floor in a CrossFit sanctioned event being at home in Australia, that could maybe be something. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know.
And
She's
don't
got
you
7.
think that, like, when she's ready to retire, that she will be the one to announce it after she wins? Like, you're right, Tommy, there's been all this
You're, t-
ambiguity.
you're talking.
So
You're
Sean
talking
said
to. You're talking to someone that.
what I'm saying is that, there's been so much question and, like, leaving the door open and not giving a definitive answer. I feel like with Tia, when she's ready, she'll know, and it'll just no,
I
I
no.
don't get
think
that
that
from her.
she is one of those. Let me tell you. Let me just say this. I don't think
Yeah.
she's someone who's going to do it in the middle of the season, right? I think she's like, I'm going. I got to win this thing. It is more likely that she would do it towards the beginning. I just think she is one of those rare people that is just
Ride till the
so
wheels come off.
friggin' driven. Like you had to hide their helmets. Remember, Tommy, in football, you'd talk
Yeah.
about that guy. You got to hide that guy's helmet, or he's going to go out
Yep.
on the field no matter what. And I think as long as she thinks that she can be competitive, and there's no reason to think that, given what we just saw, that she can't, that she is going to continue to do this, and she can still do high rocks.
But that's what I
Yeah.
mean. Like, for example, if at the CrossFit Games this coming year she ends up competing and she noticeably sees that margin of first and second narrowing, don't you think that then she'll be like, okay, I'm gonna leave on this high note because the field is gaining on me? Or do you think that that would add fuel to the fire and make her say, nah, I'm gonna separate this gap again?
I mean,
Almost like what happened when Boz programmed the crossovers and
Mhm.
the hat trick and all of those things.
yeah. I mean, one for one, I think if she was ultimately gonna walk away and was dead set on it, we would have known by now, because I think
Mhm.
announcing it ahead of time would have made that weekend at Torium Pro that much more
More hectic.
special with
Yeah.
that messaging, right? Like, you could do the full farewell tour kinda action, which she deserves,
Yeah.
and I think she is too good right now to really, like, really, really know definitively, right? It's not like she's, like,
Mhm.
pushing. God, it's hard. You have to reframe this because in this sport, it's a little bit different. It's not like she's pushing. Wow, Sam Briggs was 40 when she made the games. It's not like she's pushing 40
Mhm.
and,
She's
like,
redefining what it means to be fit as you age.
and
Oh,
she's still carving out new paths for her. So that's why I'm like, even if even if there was like an inkling of it, which I know there has been an inkling of it on her end. She came off the floor when Sean announced it last time and was like, she was under the arena in the back basically being like, I'm done. I'm done. And
Yeah.
Shane was reiterating the same thing. So it's like there's too much fire still in her belly, and I think she's too good, and there's still too much opportunity to win, earn, continue to build your legacy, to have that clear of a mind around
mhm.
it. I
Yeah.
I think.
I think you bring up a good point, Lauren. Like if she were to go to the games and it's not the dominant performance, but she still wins, maybe that gives her a second thought. And she's like, "Oh, maybe now is time." God, I do think she'd be like, "Oh no, hell no, I'm going."
I
Like
know,
I'm
I can
saying,
see
like
that.
that's because that's the kind of person and the kind of competitor that she is.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm expecting to see her on the floor in Albany, just wrecking shop.
I I would almost say it has less to do with the end result and more the process at that point. Like, the kind of light bulb moment for her basically wanting to walk away to me and then you've heard this from other athletes, where the process and the like the connective tissue around competing and being in the games is as enjoyable anymore.
Mhm.
It's like you're not, like, ramping up for an event or getting ready under the stadium isn't giving you that same juice, and it's less about the result for her, because really, like, she's done everything you can in the sport,
Yeah,
right?
nothing to prove.
And
And
she has
more.
cemented her legacy at the top. So really it becomes about the process in between, and like how much you're gathering enjoyment from that as it
Mhm.
ultimately leads to what your goal is. If she's sitting around there like, ugh, this is really just a drag, like even getting geared up or warmed up and cooled down and the whole process, waking up, packing food, all that stuff, that's to me more of an indicator than like what her name on the leaderboard says, I think.
I think that's a really good point. And then the last thing I'll say too is that family will also, when you start missing out on things and you start realizing that you're not getting these years back, and there's priorities that you have now about being with your kids and being with your husband and being around your loved ones, like that can also push someone to say, yeah, this just isn't worth it for me anymore.
Yeah, and that's not just for competing, right? Like, Sean,
Yes.
you're experiencing that now. I'm starting to go through that as well, and it's just for everything. It reshuffles the deck entirely.
Mhm. Yeah.
But
Okay. Well, like I could be wrong, but I think Tia's going to show up. All right. Last thing we want to talk about the weekend is uh, we got. I mean, I got a couple messages. I know you
so
got
did
it
I.
about the stream at Syndicate
Yeah.
Crown. Okay, so this this is how I kind of want to handle this. For me, it's just about, like, I always view this stuff as, regardless of who's doing it and regardless of what's all that, like, what we are watching, or is what the way the sport is being presented, is that conducive to growing it, getting in front of more people, building the fan base, getting a network involved that wants to put it on. And that's how I sort of view everything uh, in this space right now.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example of an event that the three of us were involved in, and this was last year, and it was at the Masters Championship. We did that in Birmingham, right?
Mhm.
That was
Mhm.
a real pared down, real bare bones stream, right? We enjoyed doing it. I had a great time. I think the athletes appreciated it. Their loved ones appreciated it. But when you look at it through that lens that I just mentioned,
Mhm.
that production was not good enough to get that sport beyond the diehards who wanted to watch it. And it was fine for what we were trying
Yeah.
to accomplish. Like I said, I enjoyed it, but we didn't have what we needed. Like, it was not presented in a way that would be conducive to growing it, right? It just wasn't. Like,
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
okay.
100%.
And I think the rough edges of that were even smoothed over a little bit by the virtue of the fact of what had been presented as
Yeah,
the age group CrossFit Games in the previous
right.
year with the singular locked off cam and everything like that. So I think people's
We were lucky
expectations were
for
lowered.
that.
We had
Yeah,
happiness is measured by expectations, so that over delivered. So
We were an
yeah,
upgrade from one single shot with no audio.
exactly. Um,
Great job, guys.
yeah, and I mean, and you should have seen us there. I mean, there were times like this. These poor guys who were like switching the 2 cameras that we would have per floor. Like we would have to tell them, yeah, Chase is in the booth, like go to that side, or
That's what
we
Tommy was
you know,
doing.
you turn around
we
and you like it was not. It was baling wire and chewing gum, So
yeah. And the
that
final
But
day,
we
we
had
cut
so
our
much fun.
cameras, our own cameras. We cut our own cameras on
yeah,
the last
we
day.
had a couple times we had the switcher right there that we were just that ain't going to get you where you need to be, right?
Yeah,
And that's really two things can be true at the same time. So I look at the Syndicate Crown stream, and you can appreciate the fact that a group of people did something for free, got on planes, traveled to Knoxville, Tennessee, set something up for free, and allowed a viewing audience to watch a competition that they weren't going to be able to see any other way. All right. So you can
mhm.
appreciate that. And I think a lot of people
Sorry, do
probably,
we know that they did it for free?
yeah, they did it for free.
Oh, okay.
And then on the other hand, you can say, yeah, that was great, but that is not the way that I think the sport needs to be presented in order to grow. Right. I,
Yeah,
I can't
that's fair.
watch iPhones and shaky cameras and pre-shows with no video. Like and it doesn't matter what the sport is. I can't do it. So to me, like the quality of that stream, well, like I think a lot of people appreciated the fact that it was free and you could watch it. That is not where I think we need to be from a production standpoint to grow the sport.
Sure. And you couple that with I use this term loosely, like the commentary being focused on the athletes and the competition, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're like what is it? I'm trying to think how Roth used to always to put it. Like the pictures have to match the action, the commentary have to match the pictures. Everybody has to be on the same page about that. And when there's disjoint amongst that, it doesn't make the viewing experience watchable for everyone or
Sure.
the intended audience, which I think in sport, professional, use the term professional loosely too, but like in trying to grow the sport at a high level, you have to try and make it more broadly appealing from a coverage standpoint, if that makes sense, right?
Through that.
Because you're getting the full swath of people coming in to watch their loved ones, families, friends, athletes, people from their gym, someone that inspires them, that whole thing, and tell those stories accordingly. But,
Agreed.
Yeah, and I think that there's also we're in this weird time of when
mm,
specifically for CrossFit, it seems like we're going away more from those broadcast versus what a live stream is. And the live stream is basically taking what people are used to seeing and hearing on podcasts and putting it as a sports coverage event. And while I think that there's a time and a place for that, I think it is a bit of a disservice to the community to have that with some of the same, I'll say, profanity and crudeness among the commentary when you're
mm,
expecting children and young ones and, your everyday listener to be trying to watch that and it not being okay for kids or just your everyday sports fan to listen to, from making fun of a 17-year-old athlete's voice who's competing over the weekend to just making fun
yeah,
of athletes in general. I think that there needs to be there's a time and a place for if people want to do that on their podcasts. I think that that's their right. But when it's as the live stream to consume sports coverage that's qualifying athletes to the games, to
yeah,
me, that's where the professionalism needs to be taken seriously. And
yeah,
unfortunately, I just don't think that it was this weekend.
yeah.
Well, I think
And this,
go ahead, Tommy.
I'll say this problem isn't new either, right? Like we experienced a lot of this in 2019 when it became the Wild West into the sanctionals era, right? Like,
Mm.
anytime there's a big void left in the space by, the controlling the kind of controlling entity, this like mad dash to fill the vacuum doesn't always lead to the best results. Like there was, I mean, even go back to the first open announcement, right? And that was how CrossFit opened the season, and everybody was like, "What the hell? Like, what is this?" And people were, outraged and
You mean
everything
in
like that.
2019 when they?
2019,
Oh
yeah.
yeah,
When
yeah,
yeah, and the first open announcement came through and everybody's like, "This is not what at all we expected."
right.
And suddenly, like, there was this huge shift and reframing of what was actually gonna, be sports coverage from there on out because, everybody was used to the higher level production quality, and at least the technical bells and whistles that CrossFit was providing as part of that sport. And, um, they after 2020, they tried to kind of reel that back in, and unfortunately, especially on the sports side, budgets, you know controlling power, decision making, and was negatively affected by a lot of the political underhandedness that was going on behind the scenes that most people will never know about, and a lot of like the uh, just mismanagement. And now as a result, you see the CrossFit pulling back again from the sport, um, in a way that I think is kind of inviting that same kind of chaos again. And that's just, if you're like trying to be like, hey CBS, hey ESPN, come back to us, and they're like, that's what you used to qualify people from the games, like that, those are the audio clips and sound bites and stuff like that they're going to going around. Like I just I don't know if that's going to be something that leaves a lasting positive impact if you're trying to grow the sport.
Yeah, I mean, I think it serves a purpose. Like that kind of production will get the diehards in. And look, some people loved it, and that's fine. Like, if that's your
Yeah.
thing, great. Some people didn't. That's fine too. Whatever. Again, I'm more concerned about, and what you just said, Tommy. Can you take that and go to someone that helps you get outside the bubble? Right. Just being online on YouTube is great, but that's not really getting you outside the bubble. I think to really make an impact and to get people into affiliates and to get more fans, you've got to be on some sort of platform, be it a Netflix or a Hulu or an Amazon or ESPN or CBS Sports Network,
Yeah.
where people who don't know about this have a chance to see it and then maybe find their way into a gym. That's what I want to happen. And this production level, same thing with Wadapalooza, same thing with what we did at the Masters CrossFit Games last year.
Yep.
That's not going to get you there. And there just isn't the money in the space right now to do it. And that's
Well,
what's concerning to me.
it also makes me wonder because last year for the entire season, and again, I know that CrossFit had a bigger hand in these semifinals, but all of their live streams were posted on the CrossFit Games YouTube channel, which has over 1 million followers. So even just like looking at day one of Syndicate last year, 647,000 views. This year, and again, not apples to apples, but just somewhat of a comparison, the day, I think it was, no, that was
It's
supposed
day
to be
one.
day one
Yeah.
was 94,000 views. So to me, it's just an interesting decision of, I get that CrossFit HQ didn't want to invest and flip the bill on the semifinals, but why wouldn't you still want your sport shown on the main YouTube channel to get more people to consume
Yeah.
content?
I don't get that at all, because what they used to do is they used to put, even on just if you went to the game site, they had like a tabbed thing where you could say, here's this stream, here's that stream, here's that stream,
Yeah.
and you could watch all of it. Yeah, I don't understand. I haven't understood their approach to YouTube for a long time. Like you said,
I mean,
why would you not put that on there? Like they should have done that for every stream this past week.
even when, so I'll say this, I don't think they have the manpower and the know-how
No.
in their current internal infrastructure to do that, to execute on that. Two, even when they did, they still blatantly and openly refused to do that. How many, like, we watched, you know, for the, how many edited pieces, and how much content just die on the vine that they never posted
Mhm.
because they purposefully and intentfully didn't want to post it. It
Yeah.
was like they
But
were
isn't
being
it a different team now?
Yeah, yeah.
It is.
And
It is.
that
But
was Emily O'Hearn and Jonathan Haynes right there. Like I can, they're not there anymore, and they were the two people who were responsible for that. So
I mean, like,
damage done.
like 50 to 50 plus 60 plus pieces of high quality content delivered to them that they were just sitting on that they refused to post. Video with promos. I mean, the type of like round the clock, high quality sports coverage that would kind of get the wheels churning again. And nope.
They
I
buried
mean,
the Miles to Madison stuff. Like you'd go to the page and you'd have to like scroll down to find it.
Mm,
Like, that
it,
was
yeah.
the highest quality content they were putting out at that point.
like borderline malicious intent, with how they were approaching it to just sabotage other people, not for the better, like, overall sake of the entire sport and betterment of the sport, which is frustrating. And that's part of the problem, right? Like, when you start to poison the well a little bit and then you're suddenly gone, it doesn't the well doesn't magically become clean for the next person,
Mhm.
right? You still have to do all this work to unscrew it. And if you don't have the people that are capable of doing that, it just sits there festering. And I think not necessarily, even with like some of the new people that come, I don't think it's a fault of theirs that they've been basically handed a crap sandwich and they're like, all right, make this a meal.
Mhm.
You're like, but at some level, it's like it's not working, it's not working.
Yeah, I'm really surprised though they just didn't put it all in one place for people and last. I don't know. But
I
anyway,
mean, they started doing that for sanctionals too. Like, if you could provide a stream key and like
yeah,
start, sending that over, CrossFit would host it on their page. I like, even if it's like, it's like, say it's hosted on another outlet's YouTube, you can still put an embed it onto the website and actually add value to your event partners, right?
right. Yeah,
Wouldn't that make sense
exactly.
to add, like, hey, to your
Yes.
event partners? If I don't know,
All right.
it's crazy.
Anything more we want to mention about that before we move on to World Fitness Project?
I mean, I hope that in the very least the games are better.
Yeah, and yes, and I think they will. They will. But again, I want the games. I hope to God they get some sort of broadcast deal. YouTube is great. YouTube's fine. And then what they do with that content, if they put that out on social media and maybe it finds people, but I want to get outside the bubble and ESPN. I don't think there's any, it's no coincidence that the best growth years for CrossFit happened when they got the games on national TV consistently. I know there were
And
other factors in there, but I think that was a big one for people
no,
to
it
see find their way into affiliates.
it was a huge factor. They were hitting on all levels, right? It was broadcast production. It was a bevy of free content that was digestible around the calendar year that gave people touch points for the athletes, for the gyms that were training them, to the other stories in the sport through the open that were more everyday type stories. You had, I would say, Netflix style coverage with like Mars and Heber and them
Mhm.
putting out Road to the Games and all that stuff. And it was a multitude of things. And then at the highest level, you could point to ESPN, and that is the external legitimacy factor when you have one of those networks attached. That if someone's like, "Oh, what's this new sport? Oh, they're on ESPN. Oh, they're on CBS." That's like, oh, okay, well, that now you have a bigger player's reputation behind you a little bit, and it didn't just happen overnight, right? Like, I feel like a broken record here because we had to make sure that the media, at least on the game side, and at certain regionals, was broadcast caliber well before it was on ESPN. We had
Yes.
to build towards stuff. We had to get reps in, even though, like, we had to make sure that the people getting involved could produce something like the update show or some of our live regionals coverage, to where it wasn't this huge jump into, all right, if someone goes to sees our stuff on ESPN and they turn back and look at, oh, what's the history of the sport from the previous year? It's not this jarring thing of like, oh, this was shot on a potato.
Mhm. Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, and we can move on. Just one more thing. I remember in 2012 when they were pitching this to ESPN,
Hmm.
they went back and they took, was it 2012 or maybe it was 2011? No, because 2011 they did the post shows. So when they were
Yep.
pitching the post show idea to ESPN in 2011, because they weren't live that year, they did
Mm.
post produced shows that showed up, and I remember being like so jazzed that CrossFit was going to be on ESPN. They took footage that they had shot from the NorCal regional, packaged it in a way that they could like, they added graphics, they added all kinds of stuff to make it look broadcast ready. They added like Rory and Miranda did sort of ad hoc play by play and color. on top of it and took that professionally like looking product to ESPN and said, look, this is what we think it could look like. And based on that, ESPN said, "Oh, that's great. Let's do some. I think we can do some post shows during this time of the year, right?" So that, to your point, Tommy, like they had to make sure that it looked good before they even got to that step of being on national television.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. World Fitness Project. So World Fitness Project made an announcement. Let me make sure I have this up here so I can share my screen. They continue to kind of roll some things out, and it's. The new one is the Rec League, is what they're calling it. It's more than just a workout. It's an opportunity for your gym community to come together more regularly throughout the year. All right. Sounds great. What is that? Rec League is a quarterly fitness competition designed to test different domains of fitness through a single unique workout. Participants support and hold each other accountable with a like-minded goal while also celebrating health, progress, and the shared pursuit of fitness. Open to individual men, individual women, duo men and women, trio men, trio women. Pretty cool. Okay.
Yeah.
And so Rec League 1 registration begins in a couple weeks, June 15th, and then the submission window is June 27th and July 14th. So this is like their version of the Open, but spread out over the entire year with just 4 workouts.
It honestly kind of feels more like the team series or like the like that kind of like those kind of events, because I don't know if necessarily like the Open technically points towards something, right? Like it points to a next level. This seems like its own like individually baked in annual competition, if you will. So
Right, because it doesn't lead to anything.
yeah,
Like it's
at least not
yeah.
that I'm at least not that I'm aware of. So it's like
you win prizes if you're like if you finish in the top, and you got to submit a video and all that stuff like you would in any normal online competition.
Fun.
Yeah. So that, which is, to me, it was kind of like what the team series was, and
yeah,
but
which was a road to nowhere, but it was really just designed
which is fun.
to compete with the grid, but it was still a fun thing. You and I did it together when one
We
year.
did.
Kara Hitzstein, and who was our fourth? I can't remember, but that was fun. We had a good time.
Carla Ferguson.
That's it. Yeah, that was cool. Yeah. But anyway, we'll be keeping an eye on that to see what that entails. So